Welcome to the Mega Man X2 Extras video, Extras Volume 2. This cutscene plays if you defeat all 8 of the Mavericks without defeating the 3 X-Hunters. We learned that the X-Hunters launched an attack on the Maverick Hunter base while X was away, and that they took Zero's control chip, as well as any parts that you may have acquired from defeating 1 or 2 of the 3 X-Hunters. This only plays if you don't defeat all 3 of the X-Hunters. So, let's get into it. You may be wondering why in that cutscene X was unarmored, because there's actually 2 factors that determine what kind of ending that you get in Mega Man X2. Number 1 is, did you get all of Zero's parts by defeating the 3 X-Hunters before defeating all 8 of the regular Maverick bosses? If you did get them, then you get the good ending, and if you didn't get them, you get the bad ending. The second factor that determines what kind of ending you get in Mega Man X2 is whether or not X collects any Dr. Light capsule upgrades. If he does, you get the regular credits, and if he doesn't, you get special credits. Once you're ready to tackle the fortress, you go through the entire X-Hunter Fortress. It is exactly the same as it was in Episode 3, so you can watch that to see what the X-Hunter Fortress is like generally, except, if you're playing as Unarmored X, it's more difficult, but, I used the password to just get to the last stage. I'm picking the central computer stage there just to show you that you can actually pick the central computer stage in order to reach the final level, same as if I were to select the X-Hunter Fortress logo in the bottom middle. The whole first half of the stage plays out exactly the same. The changes begin here. So Neo Sigma comes down, and we also have regular red armored Zero, as opposed to the black armored Zero that we had in the good ending in Episode 3 of Mega Man X2. So the dialogue that Sigma gives is exactly the same, but the context is different because this is, in fact, actual Zero, so we are going to have to fight him. That is the big change. The big change is that we have an extra boss fight before Sigma. It is Zero. Zero has 2 attacks. He can dash and then do the Earth Geyser, which is that slam that releases those rocks up in the air, and he can also fire his Zero Buster and his Beam Saber. This is the first game where he gets the Beam Saber that will become part of his iconic set of gear. This is where he first gets it. His weakness is Flame Stack. I'd recommend you use it. You can use Flame Stack to sort of cancel out his Buster Shots and his Beam Saber, his Beam Saber Slash. If you are playing as Unarmored X, this is a very difficult fight because most things with Unarmored X are very difficult because you don't have the armor to, take damage for you anymore. And it's just a very furious. It's a very fast and furious fight. If you're going to go for the quote unquote bad ending of Mega Man X2, I would absolutely recommend that you don't also try the Unarmored X challenge. I'm doing it just to, squeeze those 2 things into one so I can show you both what happens when you don't get the Zero parts as well as what happens when you beat the game as Unarmored X, but I would recommend if you're playing the game in a manner that will incorporate the Zero boss fight prior to the Neo Sigma boss fight, then I would absolutely recommend that you don't do it as Unarmored X. Because everything as Unarmored X is much difficult. You can't use the secret rooms, the Silk Shot secret rooms in Bubble Crab or Overdrive Ostrich to get easy health to fill up your sub-tanks. You have to use Will Gator, as you saw earlier, to fill up your sub-tanks because there's just no fast way to fill up your sub-tanks as Unarmored X. And these final bosses take a lot out of you. It took me like 4 tries to defeat Zero. Zero is quite difficult as Unarmored X. Neo Sigma is also quite difficult as Unarmored X because he just does so much more damage. So a fight that was really just a kind of nothing fight in regular Mega Man X2 when I had all the armor suddenly becomes a lot more punishing and a lot more challenging as Unarmored X. So here we go. Neo Sigma operates exactly the same as he did before. He does not change just because you are getting the bad ending where you have to fight Zero. That doesn't change how he fights in any possible way. He still has the claw dash, he still has his claw dive, he still has his electricity balls, and he still does the electricity wall. I am conserving and waiting as long as I can before I use sub-tanks because, my goodness, if you think that Zero is difficult, or if you think that Neo Sigma is difficult, then look out because the Sigma Virus as Unarmored X is truly a final boss battle for the ages. It is legitimately difficult to do the second phase of this final boss, the Sigma Virus, as Unarmored X. It is legitimately just wow difficult. It is like holy crap difficult. It is unreal just how much more difficult the final boss is as Unarmored X compared to Armored X. Because as Armored X, I finished the Sigma Virus fight in like 2 minutes, and it's super quick, super easy, such a nothing fight. It's more of a cinematic thing than an actual gameplay difficulty thing. But as we will see right now with Neo Sigma dead, we are going to fight the Sigma Virus, and it is going to be a lot more of a slog. So first of all, everything that I said back in the original Sigma Virus fight in episode 3 remains the same. The laser is still his most punishing attack. If you're going to get hit by anything, whether it's contact damage or whether it's the laser, make sure it is contact damage because the laser is absolutely devastating to Unarmored X. It is absolutely devastating to Unarmored X. The enemies that the Sigma Virus rains down, make a point of killing them and hope and just hope and pray that you get health drops because you are going to need them. Sigma Virus weakness is still a wire sponge, but you are really going to want to conserve it because when the Sigma Virus gets at low health, it does a new attack where it tries to initiate permanent contact with X, where it will try to take up the space that X is standing in and just try to overwhelm him and overtake him. It's an attack that I didn't even mention in the actual third episode of Mega Man X2 because it's such a nothing attack, and you're gonna be killing the Sigma Virus so quickly that it's not that threatening to you at all. It doesn't do that much damage. You kill him in like 2 seconds after he starts doing that anyway. As Unarmored X, that final attack that he does when he becomes red is absolutely devastating. You want to make sure you have like one or two sub-tanks handy for that part of the fight alone. You want to make sure that when you get to the Sigma Virus fight, you have at least 3 full sub-tanks. And ideally, you would have all of your sub-tanks. But because I also had to fight Zero beforehand, Zero and Neo Sigma brought me down to a certain amount of health where I just had to use 1 sub-tank before getting the Sigma Virus. That's not ideal. You want to make sure that if you're doing the Unarmored X challenge, that you absolutely bring 4 sub-tanks for this final boss, because you are probably not going to win otherwise without 4 full sub-tanks in this boss. I can barely believe that I got away with beating it with 3. I thought I was going to have to do 2 different playthroughs, but thankfully, after a few tries, I did manage to get this with 3 sub-tanks as opposed to 4. But normally, if you're doing Unarmored X, you want 4 sub-tanks for this final boss. By the time Sigma gets to orange goldish here, we're getting close to the point where he's going to be doing his final attack, where he's going to try to initiate permanent contact with X. Make sure that you don't use too much Wire Sponge. Wire Sponge is his weakness. If you're playing this boss fight as Unarmored X, don't use too much of it before he becomes red, because when he becomes red and initiates permanent contact with X, you want to make sure that you kill him as quickly as possible when he does that. If you can't, then you're probably going to die. And this is why I was hoping and praying that the enemies would give me better drops. They don't. The only thing that damages the Sigma Virus aside from Wire Sponge is fully charged X-Buster. You can't use the regular mid-green charge. You have to use the full giant pink pink and pinkish reddish shot that he fires. Here, Sigma Virus is trying to initiate contact with me. I'm just dodging because I really don't want to. If you dodge for long enough, the Sigma Virus will give up and go back to doing his regular laser stick. Not for that long, so I was really hoping that he would spawn in some more enemies so that I can get some more weapon energy or some more health, so that either I could survive longer when he initiates permanent contact with me, or to ensure that I can kill him really quickly with Wire Sponge. They were not giving me good drops at all. But now that he managed to get permanent contact with me, it was time to do or die and just use Wire Sponge and hope I can kill him fast. Thankfully, I had just enough Wire Sponge weapon energy to kill him fast, but your health goes down so quickly as Unarmored X in this final boss. You may be wondering, because I have not mentioned yet, why you would want to beat the game as Unarmored X. Because it's not a factor that determines what kind of ending you get. The only factor that determines that is whether or not you defeat all the X Hunters prior to defeating all 8 Mavericks. Beating the game as Unarmored X, and we're speeding through the ending here. If you want to see the whole ending normally, then you're welcome to watch episode 3 of my playthrough and see the ending play out at normal speed there. The one and only reason you would want to beat the game as Unarmored X is that there is a little cameo that happens during the credits that only happens if you beat the game without collecting a single Dr. Light capsule. No head parts, no arm parts, no body parts, no foot parts, no midair dash, no double charge buster, no Giga Crush, no weird helmet radar thing. That's why Zero shows up there for a second. And then he dashes through right now, and that's it. That's the only difference in the credits. If you beat the game as Unarmored X versus beating the game as Full Armored X, or just an X with one Dr. Light capsule part. This is another change that happens with the bad ending. You get Black Armored Zero here as opposed to regular Armored Zero. That's it. Let's move on to more extras. Alright, we're now going to be looking at the menu for Mega Man X2. There's not much to it, but I did want to show you, some of the menus and what happens if you just allow if you just don't hit the start button. It's not that crazy. It's exactly the same thing that happens in X1 or Maverick Hunter X. Essentially, if you don't hit the start button, then you get a little demo of someone playing the game and, making this first boss much more exciting than it really is. Much more of a nail biter than it really is. So enjoy that. I'll see you in a bit. Here in the menu, we can go into the option mode. We didn't do that in the main playthrough. We can change the sound mode from stereo to mononumeral. We can remap our controls, and that is about it for X2. We also have access to passwords. There is a password generator below in the description, as well as specific passwords that you can use. showing off one of the passwords that I'm using right now in order to get to, I believe, the Unarmored X final stage. This is the password that I use in order to do all that stuff that you saw in the first segment of this video. Getting password right has 0 giving you the thumbs up, and getting a password wrong gives you Sergey's. Alright, moving on. Okay, the next extra. Because we are playing this game on the Mega Man X Legacy Collection, we can play Rockman X2 as opposed to Mega Man X2 if we want. Not that much of a difference. In terms of soundtrack, there is no difference. In terms of difficulty and gameplay mechanics, there is absolutely no difference. The only difference comes from the dialogue. First of all, it's all in Japanese, but second of all, it is all the more it is the more accurate story of Mega Man X2. So, if you want the more accurate story of Mega Man X2, there is a link in the description below that takes you to a translation for the Rockman 2 script that you see some of it play out here. I would absolutely recommend you peruse through the Rockman X2 translation because it is the more accurate Mega Man X2 story and gives you, the stuff like Sergey's being implied to be Dr. Wily. That is in Rockman X2 as opposed to Mega Man X2. So I would absolutely recommend that you, peruse that at your leisure later. Same opening here. Same Mode 7 graphics for the X there, as well as the Mega Man head that we saw earlier. A fancier 2. I like the 2 for Rockman X2 as opposed to the 2 in Mega Man X2. As I mentioned, in terms of actual gameplay, in terms of mechanics, in terms of soundtrack, it is all basically, essentially, exactly the same as Mega Man X2. The difference, again, the main difference, and the thing that I would recommend you all do, is peruse the actual translation for Rockman X2, for all the dialogue that's coming up here, because it gives you the more accurate story of Mega Man X2 as opposed to the English translation that was provided for the localization. The other final difference is the names of all the bosses and the names of all the stages. You saw the names of every single one of these bosses in my Mega Man X2 playthrough. Because I have access to the Legacy Collection, I am providing you with both the names of the localized Mavericks as well as the names of the original Japanese versions of all the Mavericks. So, if you saw my playthrough for Mega Man X2, you saw that I incorporated both names. Now, we'll continue to do that moving forward. So, yeah. Let's move on. Alright everybody, thank you very much for watching. This section here is dedicated to Mega Man X Legacy Collection content, so gallery, product gallery, and Japanese trailer are all featured here. All the stuff that connects directly to Mega Man X2. There is also some additional content for you to peruse below, including the mobile version of Mega Man X2 and what that provides, as well as additional trailers not shown here. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you all have a great day. Next time we are playing Mega Man Extreme. Bye-bye.